All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I hope everyone had a good lunch break. And now we will start the afternoon parallel track of investor strategies and new funding voyages. The first panel session is bridging the post-COVID funding gaps. Now, today we're very delighted to have Mr. Ivan Wong. He's the Managing Director of Deloitte to moderate the session for us. And joining today are the panelists that we have. First, we have Ms. Karena Belin. She's the COO, CFO, and RO of AngelHub. Then we have Professor Tina Choi. She's the Executive Director of Global Venture Development, Pan-Asia Venture Development Platform, Adjunct Assistant Professor of CUHK Business School. We then have Mr. Tony Verb, Managing Partner of GreaterBayX. And last but not least, we have Ms. Estefania Almeida, Global Portfolio Manager of brinc. Thank you so much for being with us today. And just as a kind reminder for everyone that's watching right now, we do have a live poll session that is for this session. So please do copy this link, and then you will be able to make your vote for the live poll. So everyone, please do pay attention to the information that is on the screen right now. If anything, take a screen cap. This is a perfect time to do it. And right now, everyone, please do join me to welcome our moderator and our panelists to the stage. Now, I'll pass the floor to Ivan. Thank you.
Thank you. And then before we start, I was chit-chatting with the guests here. I was telling everyone, I haven't really met real person for a long time, so that makes us, for sitting here, look a little bit special, and actually a little bit old school. But lucky we still have Tony joining us online, representing the tech generation here. So actually, you know, this year, like understandably, why we have such a large turnout online, because this is a special year because of the pandemic. Is it special, or in a way it's challenging and difficult? But as we all know, like the pandemic actually brings a lot of changes to the business world. Actually, we are seeing a lot of, the clear winners and losers because of this pandemic. Like there are sectors like e-commerce, healthcare, or even fintech. They're actually beneficiary from this pandemic. But we're all expecting it to go away maybe tomorrow or next year, hopefully. But we're just thinking, like, will this trend last? Because I think like now these tech sectors, they're really the favor of the market. But after the pandemic, would that trend continue? So just first question, I probably want to throw it to Estefania, because the current trend doesn't look like it's going to stop, but I know Estefania is a very successful fund manager. You actually have a lot of good companies under your portfolio in the tech sector. Do you see this trend to carry on after the pandemic is over?
I guess that maybe I can start saying that so from the corporates, co-investors, other members of the ecosystem, all the industry leaders that we keep on speaking with throughout this pandemic, there's definitely a trend, a couple mega trends that have been maybe exacerbated by COVID that because they've been accelerated are not meant to disappear, or we will see them perdure. So to give a bit of an opinion about those megatrends, certainly there are many. Maybe I can start with one that is closer to brinc's mandate, but definitely a megatrend on its own. The necessity for robotization, for automation in infrastructure. So a lot of warehouses, factories came to complete halts to preserve, the health of a lot of workers. But evidently, this is not economically sustainable. So there is a need to further robotize, to further automate, to move autonomous robots into the infrastructure sector. Some infrastructure is critical; it can't simply stop working. There was quite a bit of a pushback from the ecosystem when companies like Tesla or Amazon were still operating and bringing their workforce to the warehouses, to the factories, so just to keep the assembly lines working. So evidently, We need to think in a way where we are preserving this critical infrastructure and its operation, its continuous operation, all the while, well, at the same time preserving the health of the workers and just continue to operate smoothly. I guess very linked to this, of course, with more IoT in this infrastructure, more sensors, more robots, there will be a lot more data collection. So what does this mean? And even outside of the infrastructure sector, a lot of people are working remotely. A lot of people have moved and all of their data is going to the cloud. It's going to different online systems. So there's also a megatrend that is linked to privacy, to cybersecurity. And we can only, and there's a lot of area for disruption in this particular field. As more data is collected, we need to turn our eye to those innovators that are tackling cybersecurity and that are also tackling, data collection and how it is collected, its privacy, all at the same time. GDPR passed, and it was a very in Europe and the US, and it was a very an excellent win for privacy advocates. However, we need to find those innovators that will bridge this privacy and at the same time are in a way to utilize data in a smart way, that applying artificial intelligence, machine learning, and rendering this data useful, automated, macro, so that we can understand a lot of trends and basically just optimize a lot of our systems. Then, if I can speak about a megatrend that is, in a sense, also linked with data, there is, well, I guess consumer behavior has been, the conscience of people has been exacerbated by the virus. So there's a constant need to think more about the circular economy. So sustainability, clean energy, and even trends in protein alternatives in creating a food system that is more transparent. So again, data gathering, rendering the system more transparent, what is coming to our tables from the farm to the table. But also, finding more sustainable sources of food, of energy creation. All of these consumer realizations are paving the way for consumption that is maybe more plant-based or that is more open to alternative sources. We see incredible innovators in creating animal protein from cellular agriculture in a lab with the stem cells. From this also we see a lot of upscaling, a lot of novel methods, a lot of new ingredients, new materials. So definitely all this circular economy and trends to also produce energy in a cleaner way, and just think about the need that we have to stop depleting the resources from our planet. Is a trend that will not stop as COVID becomes controlled and maybe disappears. So you spoke about telehealth. So evidently this has been extremely accelerated. The adoption for telehealth was extremely limited, very small, maybe a 10% in North America. But now we see this acceleration and this need to implement telehealth. In different manners. Even the FDA in the US has been enabling virtual clinical trials, which is unprecedented. We hadn't seen these sort of flexibility before, and we understand the need to also, well, from the public side, to become more flexible so that we can enable the safety of the end consumer, of the person, the end patient. I suppose that we do expect some other industries to become, well, to see more friction and come back to normality, like, experience-based activities like, this from the theater to the arts to that can still be very virtual entertainment, but there is some expectation, generalist expectation of the market that some of these will come back. But evidently, a lot of these trends that I've just spoken about, particularly the circular economy and the innovation relative to infratech, to infrastructure, are here to stay, and we need to look for those opportunities, and there's a lot of place for disruption.
Yep, thank you. It seems like everyone, and actually the market in general, is still quite optimistic about the tech sector going forward in mid-run or long run. But still, like in this typical situation, there are companies who will need urgent cash, be it a life or death situation, or be it, okay, they just see this as a short window of opportunity for them to expand. But as we see, the most typical kind of funding channel, like PE, VC, it takes time. Is there any other better way for them to find money? I know, Karena, you actually help incubate it and mentor a lot of all these startups. So do you think there are better channels other than the very conventional VCP type of funding?
Yeah, so thank you very much. What a great pleasure to be here on this panel. I think just to build on and to translate to your question, I think first of all, cash is always scarce, right? So COVID or non-COVID, and obviously in a situation where we have business and financial market downturn, it's even more difficult. I think what is important is we look at companies and put them basically into two different type of sectors. So there are the companies right now that are raising a bridge round, and there are companies right now that are impacted, that are clearly raising growth capital, right? And I think for both companies and for both type of categories, it's really important to ask ourselves the question about, is the behaviors change here to stay, or is it just something, COVID related? And right now on the platform, we can see a lot of industries, and Estefania actually mentioned a couple of these, and we can see that as well, that are really truly benefiting and that are, adopting behavior change that was forced upon us through COVID, right? And that is here to last, be it in the gaming sector, I have companies in the food tech sector, education tech sector, and right now, one company on the platform in the sector of well-being that is expanding from 4 countries to over 50 countries in less than 4 months because of the opportunity on leveraging technology and that post-COVID sensitivity of the consumers. So to your question, now, if I start fundraising right now, it is obviously more difficult because networking opportunities and face-to-face, engagement is difficult. And obviously that is still a very important part in the fundraising process, particularly the earlier stage you go. The earlier stage you go, the more important is you have a capacity to vet the teams. So that's where the value proposition of crowdfunding platforms and investment platforms such as AngelHub really become very crystal clear. Because even pre-COVID, we were solving the problem of time, access, and know-how for both the startups and the investors. So when it comes to vetting startups, vetting their business model, vetting the team, we take advantage of our partner sister company AngelHub that you already mentioned, that is operating in this space for over 7 years now, but also trusted acceleration programs such as one of the finest ones we have here on this panel, right, with brinc, 500 partners around the world, that already help us, bring companies to the table that are at the right stage at the right time. Same is true arguably on the investor side, right? So when we bring deals on the platform, we're non-exclusive. So we have invested alongside very trusted VC partners such as SOSV or Jungle Ventures, or we talked about JD.com, Enterprise Ireland, Standard Chartered Ventures, the list goes on. Where, again, it is about pooling the access, the time, and the know-how on a platform where then we can broaden the pie. And I think that is something really important because you said about alternative channels. So it's important for the startup because basically a campaign is live for 3 months on the platform. But once again, I really want to highlight that it's also important for the investors. We're also here to democratize access to startup investing. And 20 and 80% of our deal flow is pre-AA, but even 20% of our deal flow being, Series C and beyond, where typically if you decide today, as a high net worth individual, you want to start being part of that game, you would not have access. But that's something that we provide, so also on the investor side.
Yep.
And the point that on such crowdfunding platforms, you can come with a ticket size as small as $10,000. So if you have 100,000, instead of putting it into one company, now you can put it into 10 company. And we know diversification is, the name of the game. That really opens up huge opportunities.
Yep.
So yes, obviously the good thing is with these platforms, they are not here to disrupt or push anybody out of the market. But again, on AngelHub, our slogan is investing in startups together. We allow all stakeholders to come to the table and make a true difference.
And just for everyone's information, I didn't create this question just for Karena, but but anyway, but she did give us a lot of good new idea on where startups can find money when they need it. Actually, we're having this panel discussion at a very special time as they're having the election day there in the U.S. But the political tension between China and U.S. did have a lot of challenges to us, like doing business and doing funding, financing in the market. But I think the tension will not go away. It doesn't matter who's going to win tonight, or maybe who knows how long it takes for them to figure out. But actually, Hong Kong used to play a very strong role connecting China and the U.S. and the Western world. But as there's ongoing political and trade tension between China and the rest of the world, or maybe particularly U.S., how do Chinese businesses or Chinese professional or people in Hong Kong, how should we reposition ourselves? And then actually, I know, Tina, you've been working with a lot of major corporations from the U.S. like P&G and Pepsi. And then you have a lot of teaching and work experience both in Hong Kong and outside Hong Kong.
Yeah.
So can you share with us your thought? Is there anything we should start thinking differently and doing differently in this kind of environment?
Yeah, just like what Ivan has said in the beginning. So every time when we talk about the tension, especially between US and also China under the pandemic situation, it's naturally probably due to the human instinct. A lot of people will dream that the good old days will come back and everything back to normal. But actually the normal has changed already. So if those people, they are still dreaming the good old days, I'm sorry, I have to wake you up. So the new normal has actually established, because in the past 40 years, after the rapprochement between US and also China, actually the business logic overrides the strategic rivalry. But nowadays, what we have seen, the spiral downward situations, especially the political rivalry overrides normal business sense. Yeah, even though Donald Trump himself is also proud of being a deal maker. Yeah, so we have to accept to the new normal. And in Hong Kong especially, the change is structural and it's actually permanent. So we have to think about, no matter you like it or not, US has already defined Hong Kong is a part of China because of a lot of, all the sanctions, all the new measures, policy. So this is the definition by US camp already. So as a Hong Kong startup, we have to think about how to collaborate with China better as a GBA connector, Greater Bay Area connector. And also, we have to speed up our technology development as well. Just like recently, our Hong Kong MA has a collaboration with the Thai Central Bank. So this is a very good example how we can strengthen and also reposition our international financial market position as the collaborator within the region as well. So no matter you like it or not, you have to take side. If you choose to, if you review your own company core competence and find that your core technology, for example, a lot of biotech company, they license their patent and also core technology from the US, you may have to rethink whether you should reposition yourself to target for the US company, which fit for the consumer behavioral changes, which is structural. And if you rethink yourself and find that your future market and potential market will be more non-US based, for example, China based or Asia based, you have to relook into the government policy as well, especially for the 5 years plan in China. So if you're right on the trend, just like our guests have shared, so China policy have a very clear direction on development of the 5G, smart cities, IoTs, etc., especially for the AI and also data analytics, for the tracking and also tracing part. So all of this mega trend will be good to ride on if you target to focus on the non-US alliance and CAM. But if you are thinking of something which is for the global trend, it will be harder for you to have the funding in the short-term basis as well. But according to the data before today's panel discussion, I have a quick look on the some data from KPMG. They have summarized the Q2 2020 size deal. The size number has actually a significant decrease because of the angels and all those seed round fundraiser. The investor, they have the travel restriction and also the early VC as well. But the deal size has actually did not go down, especially for the later VC and also the early VC. The deal size is actually going up. So it's always a belief for me, it is not a matter of whether you have the funding gap, just like our topic today, but it's always a matter of whether you can have a good deal to capture the mega trend, including all the fintech, just like the Hong Kong is still the international financial markets. After the policy has passed in the US to delisting all those companies if you don't open your book to the US stock market. So Hong Kong still is the very good and robust secondary listing market or dual listing market. So the fintech, and as well as its affiliated technology and business model, will be another good mega trend to reposition Hong Kong roles within the region as well. Yeah. So don't short sell yourself, just like what Karena has shared. So if you cannot get the funding for survival, manage carefully on your operating expenses, survive, and until you get a good investor with the network as well.
Yep. Actually, things sound all chaotic here while we speak. We have like the trade tension, we have the pandemic, etc. But if you could travel across the border, you go to mainland China, just like 30 minutes away in Shenzhen, things look like they're in order already. And then they have long moved on from the pandemic and things are getting back to normal. So, and all these chaos that we're seeing, they're in foreign news, only in China. And then we're just thinking like Hong Kong is actually, like what Tina mentioned, it is in a very special location and situation, while like rest of the world is getting a little bit more difficult. So, but just less than 30 minutes away, across the border, things are actually thriving. And then like, it's a whole, I know it's a very different system, but I mean, Hong Kong, if we play it right, we can actually enjoy the best of both worlds. And I know, actually, Tony, like, I read from your profile, you look like you're a very big supporter of the GBA. So in this kind of environment, while Hong Kong is facing a lot of changes, and then on the other hand, like people are doing a lot of comparison between Hong Kong and Shenzhen, when or how much Shenzhen will actually overtake Hong Kong in terms of like financial hub, technology innovation hub, etc. So I wish such a big potential partner, or in a way competitor, right next to us, or actually more than one, because we have Shenzhen, we have Guangzhou, many other cities, like all in much bigger scale than Hong Kong. So how should Hong Kong reposition ourselves to further go on to develop and cooperate with all these neighboring cities in the Greater Bay Area?
Thank you for the question, and thank you for the great sharing before me. And I'm very happy to be here and representing the new normal, being virtual. I'm sorry not to be there with you, though. It would be great. So to start with, I would like to share with you my very personal perspective on the Greater Bay Area, because over the past couple of years, I've been asked various questions about what I think about the future of the Greater Bay Area and what I think about Hong Kong's future within the Greater Bay Area. And that led me a couple of years ago to research very deeply into the history of the Greater Bay Area. And since then, I have always the same answer and the same beginning of a similar thought process. And it is that the Greater Bay Area and business in the Greater Bay Area has been going on for hundreds of years. And for that reason, I wouldn't be extremely concerned for the near future, mid-future, long-term future about business opportunities in the Greater Bay Area, as well as Hong Kong's position in the Greater Bay Area. If you think about 200 years ago, before the first Opium War, but even around the first Opium War, Hong Kong was tiny and Hong Kong's importance was tiny, wealth was tiny, and Guangdong was huge. So nothing really has changed. Obviously, in the process, a lot has changed, but now it's going back to the old normal. Guangdong is going to be, it has to be bigger, it has to be stronger than Hong Kong, which is a tiny place, it's a small city. Guangdong is a huge province, so it's meant to be the situation like what's becoming again. These cities are supposed to be, this region next to us is supposed to be bigger, but as it was the case a couple of 100 years ago or 150 years ago, Hong Kong's competitive advantage is this region and its position, and we need to embrace this position. So my personal perspective is this historical context. Second, I'm an optimistic person, so I'm looking for the opportunities, and there are amazing opportunities. So we need to look at these opportunities, and for that reason, for any startup, for any business person, whether they are from Hong Kong, born in Hong Kong, or foreigners trying to do business in the Greater Bay Area, my philosophy and my message is always the same, and it's fourfold. The first is making sure that once the borders are open again, visits actually the Greater Bay Area to understand what is going on there. Because a lot of people, unfortunately, are not crossing the border either because of fear or other prejudices. So I would encourage everyone to visit the Greater Bay Area. I'm a Hungarian. I managed to build up a business in the Greater Bay Area, coming all the way from Hungary. And obviously I do it all living in Hong Kong still, and it is possible. Second, and that it relates to the first one, learn what's going on there. Not just visit, not just have a superficial view, but engage with the people. Look into deeply what's going on the ground in the various sectors that are relevant for the business that the startup or the business people are doing, because the Greater Bay Area's beauty is that it's the most diverse economic cluster in the world. So basically, in any industry, any sector, there will be a globally relevant player doing some amazing things. So there's a lot to learn. Then I also say, try to do something in the Greater Bay Area. Whatever it is that people are doing, there is an opportunity to do business, however small it is. And then find a good partner. That is always the key, I think, when it comes to cross-border business. Whatever country or market we're talking about, but especially when it comes to China, and it is true for everyone. So I really liked actually Tina's comment. I think it's very important for companies in Hong Kong and people that are startups that are based here, trying to do business from here. It is very important to make a decision whether one is playing the game in China or playing the international game. Because the good thing is right now, and that is true for the coming couple of years, one can leverage the international market access of Hong Kong inside China, or the other way around, the Chinese market access internationally from Hong Kong. But I would also urge people to not to have a middleman mentality. I would really encourage everyone, once they pick the market, go and try to be the best player in the market. But I do think in the Greater Bay Area, there are a lot of resources, there are a lot of great people, great entrepreneurs, great companies that can be leveraged to do amazing business, either in China or internationally, or actually, quite frankly, both. So one last message I would have for entrepreneurs, startups of all kinds, to go and immerse oneself in the Greater Bay Area, and don't be afraid of Shenzhen. Let's leverage Shenzhen. Let's leverage the Greater Bay Area access. And that's quite frankly my philosophy towards Hong Kong's positioning. I think as a city, as a community, we need to embrace and we need to do our best to work together and to exploit and leverage these resources that we have access to like no one else in the world, no other city in the world.
Thank you, Tony. One last question for you, because I know you wear two caps. You're both the venture capitalist and you're an entrepreneur. Because when you look at this market, like from a venture capitalist angle, it looks like all the good, thriving companies, they're expensive, or they're bad, they're abandoned, and they're like undervalued. So say pandemic is over tomorrow. So how do we look at the investment market? Are there any like good, favorable pick you get? Assume there's no pandemic. So will that look different from what people see today?
I do think there's always good deals out there. So there's no question about that. One needs to have a very good understanding of the market and a fairly good bet about the future. And I would like to once again relate back to what Estefania was saying, also Karena was saying very well, and Tina was also referring to. I made a personal choice of focusing on one particular sector, and that for me is urban tech with impact. So I look at technology and innovation that can positively impact urbanization, which is a mega trend. And within this mega trend, I believe there will be always great deals, pandemic or not. It's a long-term trend. That's why actually the Greater Bay Area is an amazing place to look at this industry, because it is the biggest megacity in the building. It's cross-border by definition. And I do think that there will be, whether in the Greater Bay Area, in China, or overseas, there will be great deals. And what the role we are playing is to help these companies do cross-border business, go from one market to another. And that is always difficult. That is the bridge we are trying to be. And we see, especially in Europe, quite frankly, there are amazing companies that are valued. I'm not going to say undervalued, but fairly valued at the moment. And compared to valuations inside China and US and also Israel, they are pretty good deals. And as long as people can grow in other markets, that valuation can increase relatively fast. So I always believe there are arbitrage opportunities, and as a consequence, there will be good deals. But probably right now, people will need to look a little bit deeper and think twice as hard, because the landscape is changing very fast across the board.
Yep, and other than, because what you've just mentioned is more like from the investor's angle, where there's opportunity to look for undervalued companies. But if we look at it from the business operation angle, doing business, etc., you mentioned that there are good companies in Europe. Like now, the valuation is actually looking very attractive. But how about from the angle of like moving the business or moving the technology across the border? Because I know like there are a lot of good companies with deep know-how, a lot of research results in Europe, but the market is actually here, either in China or in Asia. So like from that angle, do you see like there's a big opportunity for European technology to be brought over to Asia and try to capture these big market opportunities?
Absolutely, huge. But to be frank with you, also the other way around. I'm not saying that European companies are the best and there are only good companies in Europe. There are amazing companies in mainland China. There are amazing companies in Hong Kong that have an opportunity to also do business because they do something that no one is doing in Europe. So I do think that there's always an opportunity to do cross-border business. It's not easy, and that's why partnerships, and that's why I highlighted it, partnerships, local partnerships for cross-border business are always extremely important. When there's such difference between the markets and business cultures, such as Europe and China, then it's even more important. And that's when partners like ourselves or Karena or brinc are so important in having for these companies to help grow in these markets. So that's the role I think we can play on top of filling that funding gap that you're mentioning. And I just want to say, probably on that note, or share one thought on that note, that there is actually a lot of liquidity out there in the market. So I would really encourage startups that have that funding gap to go aggressively. As long as the pitch and the business is good, there is liquidity, there's capital. The existing venture capital funds have a lot of dry powder. A couple of researches came and figures came out on that front, and otherwise there's just a lot of money, a lot of capital out there available. So I would really encourage startups not to be depressed and just go for it.
Thank you, Tony, and then thank you, Estefania, Tina, and Karena. Very insightful sharing, and then thank you everyone for joining us online and offline today. Thank you.